for instance. Oh, there we go with the recording. Um, and so Jane started photography when her daughters were young and participating in sports. She was doing a lot of sports photography, and she's self-taught. And she eventually started photographing wildlife, and I think you discovered your passion there, Jane.
Yeah, I did.
And now you're out 4 or 5 days a week, apparently.
I try
In
to, at
addition to
least
still
3 to
working
4.
part-time. So Jane, thank you for being here tonight.
Well,
Well,
thank you for inviting me to share my passion about wildlife photography. It's funny, Michelle's on here, Michelle Cheeseman, and she's in our photo club. And everybody knows no matter what our category is every month, mine has an animal in it. So they all know my pictures.
very
It's
good.
pretty fun hobby. And it actually, you know, kind of saved my sanity during COVID because I was able to get out in the parks and not very many people were out, and that was very helpful. And I just really love learning and studying wildlife and their behaviors. So it's been a really good thing for me and my mental health. So anyway, shall we get started?
Yeah, and I
Sure.
think we'll, just to let everybody know, we'll probably hold most of our questions till the end. Is that okay with you then, Jane?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, okay, great.
Okay, we'll go. So I put this slide in there, just nurtured by nature, just as a reminder that there's evidence that just viewing images of nature can be really beneficial. They've conducted numerous different studies and compared even the outcome of people that were outside seeing nature versus people that maybe couldn't get out of the house but were seeing presentations or videos or YouTube videos. And they compared those, and they found that exposure to nature, either in person or videos, led to improvements in attention, positive emotions, and improved ability to reflect on a problem. So it's just a good reminder to get out and explore and enjoy Mother Nature. So spending time outside is one of the easiest ways to improve your mental health and well-being.
It's a pretty picture.
Larry?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? There's a black, this meeting is being recorded. Can I get rid of that somehow? Up at the top of the screen? Or
no,
Michelle?
you can't get
Okay,
rid
it
of
has to stay. Okay, just covering some of the words. Okay, we'll make do. Thank you.
Well, it's not covering. We can see the whole screen.
Okay, I can't. That's okay. So this is kind of interesting with the pelicans. I am not an expert, first of all, by any stretch of the imagination. I enjoy studying animals and their behavior, all kinds of animals, not just birds. And so if I see something unique or unusual, I'll kind of come home and try to research it to find out what that was. So pelicans get these big barnacle looking things during breeding season, and then they fall off afterwards. So I thought that was kind of fascinating. If you truly love nature, you will find beauty everywhere. I think that's pretty true. So it's kind of interesting. My camera, I pretty much leave it on the same settings all the time. I don't have a really expensive camera. Matter of fact, this is an old camera, a D600. I think that's why I've gotten so good at trying to understand animal behavior and observations, because I don't have a new fancy camera that will lock on to the eyes and follow everything in flight. I kind of have to do it the old-fashioned way. So I think that's one of the things I've learned that helps me take better pictures. I don't use a tripod or a monopod. And you don't really have to have a really expensive camera to enjoy photography. Matter of fact, we had an interesting guest speaker for Photo Club, and she makes a living off of taking pictures with her iPhone, with her phone. And the new phones do amazing things. So you really don't have to have a really expensive camera, I don't think, to get really good results. So I do use a single point of focus, which does make it a little more difficult when things in flight, you just have one little point to be able to catch them. But if you are able to capture that with a lot of practice, you can end up with a pretty good, nice, clear picture. One of these days, if I get rich, I do want to buy one of those new fancy cameras that locks on eyes and in flight. That would be way cool. But right now, I don't have one. But even with the cell phone, there's lots of interesting and really good classes you can take and trainings online. So I'd encourage people, if they're interested, just to get out there and give it a try. So this is what I normally take with me. I always wear a hat. I bring a whistle, extra camera batteries, water, shoes with good tread, because I did take a fall last year. I like to wear my sunglasses. I do have a taser. I'm usually out by myself, and I haven't had any trouble, but more than anything, it's good for scaring dogs, just the noise. And it's a small handheld one. It's maybe 6 inches long. Extra memory cards. I've actually driven someplace for like a half an hour and forgot to bring a memory card or put one in my camera. So that wasn't fun. A lot of times I'll have a yoga mat that I can lay down. I lay down a lot to take pictures. So if it's muddy or there's stickers, usually layered clothing because I get real warm. I usually, sweatshirts are my favorite, and I can tie one around my waist. Of course, my phone, a garbage bag if it starts to rain for my camera. I don't care if I get wet. I usually throw in a pocket knife, and then I have a small little stool that collapses. And sometimes I just sit and let animals come to me. And even if a lot of people aren't able to walk as much as they used to, or don't have the ability to walk for a long time or climb, I've discovered sometimes I just sit and let the animals come to you. And these next few pictures are just a sample, but one day, just for kicks, I went to a small pond and I just brought a chair, and I didn't allow myself to get out of the chair for a couple hours just to see what I could see from my chair. And I probably took 150 pictures and saved maybe 50 of them that were pretty decent. So again, I think if people have mobility problems and get discouraged because they can't get out like they used to, just bring a chair and sit. So I got this osprey fishing. Dragonfly flew in front of me. This egret used to go by, do drive-bys all the time. Finch, mallard flew by. Green heron came by. I think this is kind of an immature blue heron, I would guess, is across on the island. Some killdeer were out on the island. And this is my best friend here. He had to come by and say, hey. I feel bad. These ponds have dried up during the drought, and I think it'll take a few years before the osprey comes back for the fish to get bigger. There's little tiny fish in there. I've noticed the herons and the egrets are eating them, but they're real small. But unfortunately, the drought, I think, will do some damage for a few more years. These are a lot of the places that I personally like to go, and I'll just let you guys look at that real quick. No reason to read them all off. Is that good? And these are some of my other favorites that I personally like to go to. I know there's a lot more places. I just did some of my favorites. So often you need to return to the same spot for days. A lot of times if I see something, I'll try to go back there about the same time of the day and see if it shows up. For many of you, that this is a map of Anderson River Park. Again, I'm down there a lot because it's so close to my house, but with some degree of accuracy, not too bad. I can pretty much tell you where you might find a green heron, a blue heron, the egrets, the beavers, the otters, where the woodpeckers like to hang out, certain trees that the woodpeckers prefer, and certain trees that nuthatches like. So kind of within reason, I'm able to do that. So I think that helps to, if you're real serious about it, to get out frequently and observe where things are and try to go back again. So it does help if you can try to make yourself scarce. Oh, I got scared. That's good. Scarce whenever possible, and you just might get lucky, and be patient. I think it's the nature of wildlife. Your waiting will usually pay off, but if not, you're still out in Mother Nature and you can enjoy just sitting there and watching. So one time, this is my many bird photographers' nemesis are the kingfishers. They really are hard to get. They're real spooky. They take off, they fly really fast. So I was hunkered down in some brush at one of the ponds at Anderson River Park trying to get a kingfisher. And I heard this noise next to me, not very far away, maybe 10 feet, 12 at the most. And this beaver crawled up and almost sat right next to me. And that's all that would fit in my camera frame. That's how close he was. Mm-hmm. And he looks over at me and I kind of looked at him because I was surprised, and he just went back eating. He was probably around 50 pounds or so. It was pretty good sized beaver. So that was one of my highlights for last year. I just really enjoyed that experience of getting to see him. And I view wildlife photography as my therapy. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it. I think it's really good. You know, I get outside and walk, and it's good for my mental health. It's just good all the way around. I do normally go out looking for wildlife 3 to 5 mornings a week. And I wander around, I don't know, 1 to 5 miles, spend 2 or 4 hours each day. I try to get out as soon as it gets light because I don't do very well in the heat, that's for sure. That's my favorite time of the day. And the early bird gets the worm, obviously. And if you're out there shooting from a photography standpoint, things will happen for you. If you're not out there, you're only going to hear about it. And I think that's the same with birding. If you don't go look, you're not going to see much, except for in your yard. So I think he was kind of laughing at me. I'm not sure. So I am a morning person, and especially in the heat of the summer. So some of my favorite photos were taken during the morning golden hour. And it does increase your chances of taking a great photo of wildlife if you plan to go out in the golden hour, because sunrise and sunset are the best time of the day when the animals are more active. They're usually up looking for food as soon as they get up or before they go to bed. And then the light creates a really different kind of element to a lot of the photos. So these next photos, I'm not really going to talk about much, but they're just some examples of photos that we're taking in the morning golden hour. I don't really like these little kingbirds. They dive bomb my ospreys all the time. I'm going to, if we have time real quick, I'd like to tell a fun story. My niece likes to assign spirit animals to a member of our family if they pass. And my father passed quite a few years ago. And she told her son to look for a spirit animal for grandpa. And they don't have water on their property. They're over at the coast, but her son came running back up about 4 days after my dad passed. Mom, there's a blue heron out in the field. So she immediately calls me. And at that moment she called me, I'm down at the river taking a photo of a blue heron. So we thought, okay, it had to be the blue heron. And then later, we put my father's ashes in Humboldt Bay, and there was a few blue herons flying around, and the captain on the boat had been on the bay about 60 years, I believe he told us. And when we put my father's ashes, the container, in the water, he turned the boat around, and out there on the island, there was at least 30 or 40 blue herons. And he said, oh my God, I've never seen anything like that before. You know, I've never seen that many all in one place, because usually they're pretty solitary and by themselves. And as we got a little closer, they kept peeling off, flying away, except for one that was down front that was just kind of giving us that look like, I'm not going anywhere. So we thought, okay, that's Dad. So it's kind of fun for me when I go out now. It's kind of silly, I know, but I always say, hey, Dad, you're looking pretty good today. It's just kind of a fun thing. One of my friends, too, came to one of my presentations up in Paradise, and she had sketched a picture of my father for me. And I was telling this story about the blue herons, and she raised her hand and said, Jane, I didn't ever tell you this before, but my drawing table is in front of my window. And the whole time I was sketching that picture of your father, there was a blue heron out in the field staring at me. So I thought it was pretty interesting that came full circle like that. This was some backlighting, but sometimes the backlighting is a really nice effect also. You try to have the sun to your back when you're taking pictures because that is the best lighting for your subject. But if you just have backlighting, I go ahead and take a shot because sometimes I think it has a nice effect. This is one of the beavers that's in the pond at Anderson Park. A ringneck duck. You'd think they'd be named for their beak, but see that little brown ring around its neck? That's actually why they're called a ringneck duck. It seems kind of odd, doesn't it? Is this enough time in between, everybody? A few seconds enough time to look, or am I going too fast?
Yeah, a couple more seconds would be nice.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
I call this one checking under the hood. Sandhill cranes early in the morning with a couple of little blackbirds. They've got quite the dagger, don't they? Okay, I'm not really good with my sparrows. Which one's this? Song sparrow?
Savannah sparrow.
Savannah, thank you.
Yeah, they have that gold line above the eye.
Those little sparrows get me every time. I think this is a lark, right? Lark sparrow? It was a baby one.
It's a juvenile or whatever it is.
I like the little mouth. Beaver was having some breakfast early in the morning. And this was another backlit of the kestrel. He'd caught a lizard there, but the effect from the sun in the back was kind of nice with his golden colors. I hardly ever get these guys to sit still. This was at Llano Seco out of Chico. In Anderson River Park. I know that's not an animal, but I liked it. So I like to try to get your image, whatever light there is. You can't really, as you guys know, with wildlife, you can't say, will you stop and let me move around to the other side? I don't have very good lighting. So I try to take pictures at first. And if the animal is stationary, then you can try to move around to get in a little better position if you're not, threatening to it or scaring it or making it feel uncomfortable. So again, you always try to have your sun to your back for the best lighting if you can. But animals don't always cooperate. So you just take a whole bunch of pictures and see what you get. I thought this was funny. Anybody relate to that one? So this is interesting. So I do try really hard if animals look frightened, startled or nervous. A lot of times I will lay down or at least sit down so you don't look so intimidating. So this otter, for example, I didn't see it because it was under the water and I was scanning the water and it popped up and surprised me and I surprised him, and all the fur went up on the top of his head. So I laid down right away and held my camera out waiting for him because they're usually pretty curious and they'll give you one more peek. I've noticed from observing them a lot. And when he came back up and looked and I was lying down, then it automatically all went down. So that's pretty cool. So this one is another interesting story with animal behavior. Two little ponds in Anderson off Oak Street. They connect and there's a culvert. And I saw an otter coming and they went under the culvert. So he popped up and I laid down. There's some concrete in between there. And I laid down again and he popped up and I got a few good shots. And so the next day I went, he was probably only maybe 8 feet away, 8 foot away. So the next day, about the same time, I went back to that location, and right where I had been laying down was full of otter poop. So they were marking their territory and telling me to back off. Don't come here again. That was kind of funny. So according to what I have read, that researchers say that Canada geese use about 13 different calls to convey a lot of warnings, greetings, messages, emotions. And I spent so much time watching them and listening to them, I'm pretty doggone good at figuring out what they might be doing based on what sounds they're making. I think I need a life. I've spent too much time with them. This one obviously was having a fit and jumped off to chase some other geese away. His mate was up on the little island there on a nest. And this one I just like because I had never noticed that Canada geese have these little feathers around their eyes. Have you guys ever seen that? I haven't either. So
no, never seen that.
I didn't either. I didn't know they had it. I thought it was kind of fun. So you guys probably all know this, but in 2004, they split the Canada goose into 2 species. And now there's 2 species and there's 7 subspecies. Some of them are really slight differences. Other, it's size and the color of their breast, if it's kind of a dusky, which is one of the geese, or darker. A lot of it has, this one is an Aleutian, and it has a real short little beak, and the slope of the head is varying between all the different kinds of geese. And then on top of it, unfortunately, they still interbreed with each other, and then you get all kinds of geese that you're not sure what it is, and it's a cross between them. So I didn't know if you guys knew there was that many subspecies, but this is an Aleutian. This one on the left here is a minima. That's the smallest one, and in relationship to the size of the dusky or the Canada goose that we see most frequently here on the right. And the little ones here are just a little bigger than a mallard. But you can see the head difference in the slope, and the beak's really tiny. And this also, the one on the right, is a taverner's goose, and it's got a much shorter neck and a different head slope and beak size. The one on the left is a regular, what we would call Canada goose or dusky. This one, see the little white on the top of the beak there? Most of the geese that have white there are the Moffat subspecies, and that little white is usually bigger, but sometimes it's just small like that, but that's what makes them distinguish between some of the other subspecies. Did you guys know there was so many?
I knew there was quite a few.
Yeah.
Wow.
So some days you just get lucky and you have to wait for it. Unfortunately, this was bad because this was when the 2 small ponds off Oak Street and Anderson were drying up because of the drought, and 40, 50 pelicans came in and just wiped out the fish. Eventually the pond completely dried up, so it wouldn't really have made any difference. And as the water got down, it got so hot that all the fish were floating anyway because they couldn't survive in that hot water. But it did make for a fun day. I probably took quite a few thousand different pictures, and I'm just going to show you a few of my favorites. But it was pretty cool to capture the pelicans. Some of them were scooping up 5 and 6 fish at a time. This pelican, that fish was so big it struggled for the longest time and couldn't ever swallow it. In this you can see there's at least 3 or 4 in one scoop. I think that one's trying to jump out. Here again was that giant one. It just couldn't swallow it. So it was a sad experience, but I didn't have any choice with it. So it was fun to get some photographs. So whenever you can get down to eye level, either by laying down or if you're lucky enough to get a bird that's in a tree that's about eye level with you, It really makes a much better picture when you can get that perspective than you're standing up ahead of them for photography. And sometimes, again, too, when I lie down and you're not such a threat, they'll kind of ignore you and go about if they were trying to hunt or fish or whatever they were doing. And a lot of times they're preening. That gives you an opportunity to get more pictures. So I lay down a lot to capture a photo, or at least sit down, and I try to frame it at their level and perspective. So these next pictures, I'm not going to talk about, but it's just at eye level, and you can see, I think they're great pictures when you're able to do that anyway. Whoops. Do you guys know your waterfowl, or should I be mentioning what kind they are?
I think most people know waterfowl,
Okay.
but feel free to
Okay, well, of
tell
course,
it
that's a green heron,
northern shoveler.
or
Yeah,
shoveler, a spoonie.
drake.
These are baby mallards. Again, I like the lighting on this one. I think coots are kind of pretty. That's a sphinx moth or a hummingbird moth. Those eyelashes. High-billed grebes are pretty. These are probably just a day, maybe 2 days old here, I would guess. This was the biggest crawdad I've ever seen. It was huge.
My favorite.
Yours?
Yeah.
You know what? I know they wouldn't let me, but I always want to cuddle them. They're so cute. I'm sure they'd rip me apart, but well, this one doesn't look so cute, but these are one of the red-eared sliders turtles that are kind of taking over for our native pond turtles. So they're not the best to have around, unfortunately. There's your bittern, not from Clover Creek, but and this one I wasn't laying down, but again, I was eye level with, so. Laying down for this one. So I always do, and just encourage everybody to be patient. If I see osprey fishing, I'll sit there for an hour hoping that maybe it'll dive down in front of me. I'm not really positive, but if I don't have anything to do, I will wait. So I think patience is a lot of it. A lot of people get discouraged because they walk out and think they can just find all these things, and it doesn't always work that way. This is a very interesting story with this one. The fish is a lot bigger than it looks. And it took him under the water. 5 times. He kept trying to come up in the water, and the fish would drag him all the way back under. And I think after the 5th time, he was pretty exhausted. So he just let the current pull him over to the other side of the Sacramento River. And then he could drag the fish up, and he ate as usual. The ospreys, a lot of times, they will eat the head and the guts before they bring it back to the nest, because they need to get some more nutrition they're exhausted from all that effort of trying to get diving and then coming back out of the water. So after he ate a good portion of it, he was able to lift it up and take it back to the nest. I just threw in a fun these because it was an amazing trip for me. I got to go to Ketchikan, Alaska. My older daughter have a second home there. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack. There were so many eagles. I've never seen so many eagles. It was a fabulous trip. Lots of eagles and lots of black bears. Ketchikan is an island, so they don't have any grizzly bears, but it was just so exciting. This eagle flew that close to me that that's all that would fit in my camera frame. There was lots of fighting going on. most of you probably know this, but the eagles take about 5 years from the time they're born to get the full white head. You can see there's one fish down there kind of in the middle. And there was a lot of eagles that wouldn't even fit in my camera frame that were hanging around the outside there. It was crazy. I was so excited. The younger one showing the older one who's boss, I guess. It always makes me kind of giggle too, because all the other two eagles over here and then there's one behind are just like real nonchalantly watching, like, oh well. Isn't that crazy? There's so many.
A lot of eagles.
Yeah, I like talon to talon here. This one kind of looks like it's just suspended in air. It's kind of fun. This is, I'm pretty sure, an optical illusion, but I just put it in here because the eagle on the left looks like it's huge. And I think it just might be perspective, although they were pretty close to each other. And there was bears. The big splash on the left here on the screen was the fish. On this particular pace, the tide goes out and takes all the fish with it. And as soon as the tide comes back in, all the fish start going up. And there's a little stream like where there's a fish hatchery up there. So when the tide comes in, all the bears come out to get the fish. So a lot of these, I'm fairly close to the bears, but to be honest, I didn't feel scared or threatened because they're really after the fish. That's their whole goal, is to get those fish. There's a mom with two little ones. And I was probably a good 25 yards, maybe. So I thought this was funny. So this is another tip for photography. If you can anticipate action, and again, by studying the behaviors so frequently, I kind of have an idea of when they're getting ready to do something or what they might be doing, or you can see a scenario being set up that you want to watch. So this blue heron had just been flying around, and so I was ready for it. But this is a little sequence. You can pretty much guess what's going to happen here, I'm pretty sure. The great egret doesn't look too happy and wants that spot. They're so much bigger, aren't they, when they're side by side like that? Oh, these guys, the little bush tits, are so adorable. They're what, like 3 or 4 inches long, including the tail. They're so tiny, and they were on a vine. And so I was laying down again, and these two are just adorable. And so here comes the third one and wants to squeeze in between those two. And then we got a fourth one that comes on in. And then they're all like checking out. And yet here comes the fifth one. So that was kind of a fun sequence. This is another one of those where I was curious about the behavior. As far as I know, egrets eat everything. And it speared this, I'm assuming it's a bullfrog tadpole because it was large. So he speared it. And then I thought it slipped off at first. But then it went into the water and it never, ever picked it back up again. And I thought that's kind of unusual. So when I got home, I looked it up, and the tadpoles, the bullfrog tadpoles, one of their defense mechanism is they taste horrible. I guess they have a vile taste to them. So it spit it out and never tried to catch it again. So that's some of the things like I'm curious about, and then I'll come home and try to do some research and study because I'm a nerd and it's fascinating. Now, this is at Battle Creek when the salmon are running, and I put these in there just as again, studying them. It's pretty hard to catch them in jumping. And so I'll watch and they're going to go to the path of least resistance to try to jump up. And so I'll watch where the majority of them are leaping, and that's where I'll try to focus on in hopes that I'll be lucky enough to catch one. This is a lot harder than it looks. Michelle will fess for that one. Oh, this is another anticipation one. I was at a busy baseball field and I heard a killdeer and it's calling like a distress call. And so I walked up on this little hill and it's unfortunately she'd laid him right in the gravel. And so I took a picture, and then killdeers, you guys probably know this, but if the poor thing, I felt bad. There was, 30 baseball players running up and down that hill all day and she was having a fit. So they try to lure you away, like pretending that they have a broken wing or they're injured. So I was able to capture some of her broken wing action. They fan their tail and hold their wings at odd things like they're hurt. So the predator will follow them and not go get the eggs. So this is just kind of a fun thing that I enjoy doing. Is my big lens I have is a 200 to 500 and it has an extender on it. So it makes it about a 700 millimeter lens. And again, I use a single point of focus. So bees in flight, as you can imagine, it's pretty hard with one tiny little focus point to try to get them in flight. They're so tiny when they're taken off. But I've worked at it for a long time, so I'm pretty lucky. But that huge big lens I have, I think almost does macro photos, which everybody always laughs at me, but it does a great job. So these next pictures are just mostly of insects that I have taken, but they're just kind of fun to look at. Oh, I got two of those. Shame on me. Have you guys ever seen these? Yeah, they act like a hummingbird.
Yeah.
I like this little bee jetting away on the side.
Wow.
And this is actually a fly, and flies actually, certain flies pollinate like bees do. So I know all of us find flies very annoying, but they do help pollinate. I know these aren't birds, but I'm hoping you're enjoying them anyway.
Of course.
Oops, sorry, that one went quick. Fun to see him up close with that nectar tongue and beak, and I don't even know what you call them on a bee. Does anybody? I don't know. So I walk, I look, I see, I stop, and I photograph. So I normally start taking photos from far away and then I inch closer. I like to be patient, and a lot of times if I inch closer very, very slowly, I won't be scaring the birds or making them take in flight. I personally never ever want to intentionally scare any of the birds into taking off just so I can get a photo. But again, based on their behavior and if they look nervous and are looking around, I think I can feel if they're stressed, then I immediately back off. But if they seem pretty calm, I just inch forward very, very slowly. Again, I don't ever try to make them get in flight just to get a picture. I try my best to be careful. So this was kind of funny. I do try to capture different personalities, and I know people would argue that birds can't make faces and don't show any personality, but I'm hoping I can change their mind after they see some of these. So the osprey down at Anderson River Park evidently stole somebody's sweatpants and thought that would be a nice way to line the nest. And Papa flew in and kind of like, what the heck is that? And then he moved it. He didn't like where it was. So I thought that was pretty, but I just really loved the expression on his face. Don't you think he's like, what? Made me laugh. So this guy missed a fish and he wasn't very happy about it. So his little punk rocker hairdo stood up. And he's definitely not having a good day, I would say, huh? Snowy egret. This was pretty funny. These coots were fighting, and if you guys have seen their big, huge, flappy feet, they hit each other with their feet, which I just found kind of amusing. I don't know really how bad they could hurt with those feet, but I decided these guys were trying to figure out where to go to lunch. And if looks could kill, it doesn't look very happy up there, huh? It's my favorite mama osprey. RGB, right, Trisha? Like, what's up, dude? How many of us felt like this in the morning? And does she look tired or what? She had all these babies crawling all over, and I think her expression looks like, okay, I'm just about ready to lose it here. Like a little grumpy, maybe hasn't had coffee yet. And this is what happens when you have way too much coffee. I love these little guys in that pose, huh? The swallow just sat there and let me take a whole bunch of pictures. So it's beautiful. I call this the original otter pop. Remember all those little otter pops we had when our kids were little? And I called this one holding court. Looks like it's wanting to get attention from everybody. And if that's not concentration, I'm not sure what is. Red-tailed hawk. And the baby's wanting some food and doing some begging, and I think the parent's pretty tired. Like, again? I don't think I would come take that fish away. I think it's kind of daring anybody to get closer. I think that's his GQ magazine pose. And I hope this female gracker is able to kick the smoking habit soon. So here's another thing. If you're wanting to take pictures or find, for that matter, a certain bird or animal, I think if you take the time to do some research about what kind of habitat they like and maybe their behaviors and where they would most likely be found based on what they're looking for as far as what types of trees or brush or. So I do a lot of that also. For example, the horned larks, they like the open ground, and so do the prairie falcons, the burrowing owl, and the western meadowlarks. So the plains are always a good place to catch them. Oops. Nuthatches like spruce, fir, pine, and oak trees. And we all know the woodpeckers, especially these characters, they like pine trees to eat the sap, pine nuts, and oak trees as they like to eat and enjoy and gather and save all the acorns. And this is just a photography tip, sorry, but geese and ducks like to land coming into the wind because it creates a lot of drag. And so depending upon the lighting and the availability to maneuver and move around, you always like to position yourself with your back to the wind if there is wind when you're trying to photograph waterfowl. So photography to me is my love affair with Mother Nature's wildlife. And I do love learning, I think someplace around here, about wildlife and studying them. And these are some of my reference books that I use. And then I look up a lot of stuff online. I love the contrast with the yellow flowers, and the egret was eating little tiny baby frogs. This little guy cracked me up. You can see he's sitting on a little rock so he doesn't freeze his rear end on the snow.
Where did you see that?
Up in Klamath area. They're so beautiful. So these next pictures aren't really of wildlife, but when I'm out walking, I look for birds, I look for wildlife, lizards, anything that looks interesting to me. And I just find a lot of beauty just in other things other than wildlife and animals. And this, for example, was a dried up leaf, but with just the way the lighting was in the background, I just thought it was beautiful. It reminded me like of a necklace or something, a pendant on a necklace. So I'm just always looking and scanning for things that look different or that are unique or something stands out or is moving. So these next few are just some things that I think are beautiful part of Mother Nature that don't involve animals. This is what happens when it's raining and you can't get out. You lay down on your porch and take raindrop pictures. This was my photo bomber, that little tiny frog. I was looking at all the patterns and the beautiful colors in the leaves, and I saw him sticking out. This kind of reminds me of a ballerina tutu. And I just thought this red leaf on some of the bark was gorgeous. And I really like this leaf with the water drops on it. No, why I think this is moving on its own, huh? Larry, do you know how I can get this to not move so fast?
It would be how you set it up on your.
Okay, and I don't know how I did, so this might be interesting. Okay, so some of these, I'm just going to describe some of the behaviors that I find really interesting when I was doing some research. There may be a lot of disagreement of what you find online, and I totally understand that, but these are some of the things that I found. Not everybody may or may not agree with them, but I like to find interesting thing about different animals. So the egret, as you guys all probably know, was nearly wiped out at the United States in the 1800s when they were killing them all for the plumes for fashion and ladies' hats. And they did make a big comeback because a group of early, I think it was mostly women, conservationists put a stop to the slaughter. And now all the colonies are protected. And that's how this egret became the symbol of the National Audubon Society. These little guys, if it's Larry's favorite, he probably knows this, but before they lay their eggs, these little guys, because they are out in the prairies and a lot of times there is cattle and sheep where they like to live, they scatter animal dung around the front of their burrows in the entrance. And the result is it's kind of like the owl version of food delivery. All the bugs come marching in to eat the dung from the cattle, and they can just go out and have insects and feed their young. So it's kind of like having home delivery of your food. And I thought that was really interesting. And it's clearly they use the scat as bait. And then if it runs out, they go get some more. The other thing that these guys are known to do is to let other animals know that their burrow is occupied. So they decorate the entrance with trash paper, straw wrappers, bottle caps. I think that was pretty fascinating. Woodpeckers have a tongue that's wrapped all the way around the back of their brain. So it doesn't just store their long tongue, but it also protects their brain from injury when they're doing the high-speed pecking. And it keeps its skull and spine snugly in place as it, how it just collides with that tree and gives you a headache just watching it. And it's kind of like having a seat belt. It helps you sit in the seat. It protects its brain from injury. And I thought that was really interesting. Sheep and starlings are great friends. You've probably seen this, but the starlings learned pretty quickly that there was bugs and ticks and parasites within the sheep's coat. So they became best friends. The double-crested cormorant during breeding season, their eyes and the interior of their mouth turn this bright, vibrant blue. And it's only during their breeding season, but I thought that was so beautiful. I don't know if you guys know this, but the Chinese many, many years ago used to use these birds for fishing. They had a ring around their neck, and these guys can dive down or dive around 200 yards. They're pretty expert fishermen, and the ring wouldn't let them swallow the fish. They'd come back up, and then they would take their fish, and then every once in a while they'd let them keep one and take the ring off. And they actually, there's a interesting documentary about them and about a man that actually raises them for fishing, for them to catch their fish. Nuthatches, I thought this was fascinating. In the winter, a lot of times they'll forage together with other birds like chickadees and downy woodpeckers in a group, and they call it a foraging guild. And nuthatches can recognize the alarm calls of the other species, and therefore it reduces their level of awareness and lets them more time to concentrate on finding food because they're not looking and they wait and hear the other alarms. And then they know something's coming, so they can scarf down all the food, not worry about it. So here's, I thought the ones that had the black were males, but I'm gonna have to look that up again. We had a discussion earlier before the meeting started about that. So I'm gonna try to do some more research when I got off, but it's pretty fun during breeding season. It's not often you get to see these white feathers stand up on their backs like that in the back of the wings. So that was pretty funny. And as you guys know, they make this huge booming call during breeding season. It's funny to see them without their neck stretched out too. So the house finch, the red plumage actually comes from the pigments in their food, the same ones like we find on carrots and tomatoes. And the females prefer the males with the bigger and brighter patches because it's a sign that they're well fed and that they're going to take care of them. This is an osprey that's hovering, looking for food. And they have an amazing eyesight that's 3 to 5 times better than ours. And then they have 4 color sensors compared to our 3. And that 4th one allows them to perceive ultraviolet light and lets them see the fish better. So anytime you see one hovering, watch them because they're going to try to catch a fish. This one, I don't know if it'll shock you guys, or maybe it's not even true, but it surprised me that they do not belong to the group of water birds, but they can swim very fast to escape their predators, is what I looked up. And they can even swim when it needs to for survival. And they have even been observed swimming underwater when threatened. Has anybody ever heard of that?
Never heard of that. No.
I know. So aren't I handsome? Check out my raising red. How do you pronounce that? Epaulets?
Epaulets.
Epaulets. As I grow older, my epaulets grow more brilliant and help me to attract potential mates. I'm a bit of a bad boy as I have commitment issues and I sometimes juggle as many as 15 females. So this Phainopepla ended up in my backyard, and they have a very interesting digestive tract that's specialized for eating mistletoe fruit. And the berries, the mistletoe berries, are really low in nutrients, so the birds have to consume lots of them to get the nutrients. And the berries spend only about 12 minutes in their intestine, and the birds can eat as many as 1,100 berries a day. The black phoebe, one of my other favorites. In 2011, there was a study done on the black phoebes in California, and they tested some different hypotheses to see, you know how they tail pump all the time? To see if that was related to balance or if the pumping rate changed, whether they were perched or territorial aggression or foraging, or none of those really changed the pumping action. But when they did a play back a call of a potential predator like a Cooper's hawk, it caused the tail pumping rate to increase 3 times. I just thought that was kind of fascinating. My favorite, our mockingbird. Funny story, down at the Anderson River Park, there's a big oak tree kind of behind where I sit and watch the osprey nest that's up about 80 or 90 feet. And as you guys probably know, the ospreys make a real distinct little peep noise. And I kept hearing it, thinking the dad was bringing in fish. So I was all ready and I kept turning around and I couldn't see the dad anywhere. So I'd sit back down and then I'd hear the noise coming behind me again. I'd get up and I'd look, and it was one of these guys in that tree behind me mimicking the sound that the ospreys were making. So evidently, they can possess between 250 and 350 different songs and sounds that they can make. And they also can sound like mammals, including a dog, electronic sounds, car alarms, cell phones. And they've been known to imitate at least 12 different species of frogs and toads. I don't know, it cracks me up. They're pretty amazing. The white-crowned sparrow, researchers have discovered that the young white-crowned sparrows sing in regional dialects, and that where they learn those in the areas where they hatch, and I guess they return each year to the same place. And so the white-crowned sparrows can actually become bilingual. That is, they can pick up the neighboring birds' dialects as well as their own that they've learned and sing both. So I thought that was kind of fun. So this was a new one to me. When I saw this, I'm like, what the heck is going on? So I had to go home. And now I know that these are fecal sacs, poop, and they're encased in these membranes that don't leak. And then the mom or dad takes them off so the nest doesn't get messy. And I guess a number of birds do this, but they're like disposable diapers, they're calling them. So the parents pick up the sack and move them. And they said the babies are in the nest for about 13 days and they poop every time they eat. So if you do the math, 13 days and 4 babies, 356 insects and worms average per day. And that makes a lot of poop.
Yeah, most cavity nesting birds take the fecal sacs, the fecal sacs out every time they feed.
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. I just had never seen it before, so it was pretty cool. So the wood duck, too, is more than just a pretty face. Their colors are amazing, that's for sure. But females choose the brightest and most standout duck, not only because they like the colors, but because they're the most fit for survival. Only the cleverest and most athletic birds can survive with such bright colors. And so it makes them, because they're much more conspicuous to predators. So that's why the females search out the brightest colored wood ducks. So this one I was really excited about. This is one of the courtship behaviors called lifted tail for the northern pintails. And I drove down to Llano Seco again, which is south of Chico. hoping to capture this behavior. And I was so excited that I actually lucked out and captured it. But it's like it says, it's called the tail lift. So they approach the females by whistling and doing their tail lift. So in every walk with nature, one receives more than he seeks. I didn't know if you guys had had the opportunity to see juvenile yellow magpies, yellow-billed magpies before. So these are some youngsters. And this next one I was thrilled to find because I've never seen them before, but guess what this is?
Belted kingfisher.
Yeah, little one. And these are just some random other photos that I thought you might enjoy. I love their eyes. So I do have a nice long lens, so I want you guys to know I'm not scaring them off or threatening to them, or I would back off. I know it looks like I'm right in their face, but I'm really not. I really like it when you can catch a background that just has trees way far away or water. So you get that blurred look and it really makes the birds stand out because you don't have a lot of busyness out behind them. This was that big fish that kept pulling it under the water. You can see a good portion of it's gone. One of my favorites. Love those little guys. White birds and the blackbirds are really hard to photograph unless you have almost perfect lighting. If it's really bright, the camera blows out and you don't see any feather definition. So again, photographers are always really excited when the lighting gods cooperate. That's a juvenile green heron. This guy was funny. I was walking on a trail and it landed like probably 15 feet away from me. So I was able to get some nice close-ups of it. And finally, it just sat there for a while. So I told it thank you and backed away so it could enjoy its food. I talk to the birds a lot. You guys could probably think I'm silly, but I usually tell them thank you for letting me take your picture. People think I'm nuts. Probably am. It's okay. I was thrilled to get this guy too out in the open. They're usually down low in the brush hiding. He was singing away. Flickers are really skittish too. I have a really hard time capturing good pictures of the flickers. This guy lives down at Anderson River Park and the kingbirds just pummel him all the time. Another green heron. I thought this one was just fun of the feeding, and you can see the protective eyelid is covering the eye during the feeding so it doesn't get poked in the eye. I thought was kind of fun. I'm hoping to see these guys back again soon. The orioles are so beautiful, aren't they? This little pie-billed grebe with babies riding on its back. And again, this was funny. I was laying down again and I didn't realize until I got home that I had actually gotten almost a perfect reflection there in the water. So sometimes you get home and like, oh, wow, cool. These guys are very cute, I think. There's some beautiful colors on one of the wild turkeys. Again, only in the right light can you really capture some of those colors. And I know a lot of people don't like starlings, but I think they're beautiful and it's not their fault they were brought here, I guess. I love their murmurations, that's for sure. This is a courtship flight. The pintails and most of the waterfowl do a lot of, you can see the one female, she's second in the lead there, and they just hound them to death. Oh, I already did that one too. It's the blackbird that I was finally excited about getting some feather definition on. Again, thanks to the lighting gods. And these guys are just adorable. If you had a chance to go down to Sacramento or National Wildlife Refuge or up to Klamath to catch the grebes, they're really fun to go watch. I think it's usually in July-ish when the babies are born, but I just love seeing them ride around on the backs and those red eyes. Not much cuter than that. Young fawn over at the coast. These guys appeared out in my backyard here not too long ago. And then whoosh, they were gone. And I guess the red on the wax wings, that's why they're called wax wings, on the tips of their wings really are some form of wax, which I found when I did some research and thought was really interesting. I think they're beautiful birds too. Is this a youngster, anybody, or is it just?
That's an adult.
It is? Okay, I hadn't really seen it with the little tufts up on the top of the head and it looked kind of little, so thank you. And everybody's been trying to find this guy. He's down in Anderson. I guess he likes the French fries at McDonald's, and he's been seen at Taco Bell. And this was off the freeway off ramp that I caught him a couple weeks ago. They're beautiful. That's an avocet. This little guy, see the little fleck in his left eye there? I think we call him Speck and Fleck. He just sits there and stares at you. You can walk almost right up to him and he doesn't care a bit. And he's on like a pretty busy road. Just the pheasant colors are amazing to me. These are some little baby house finches, I believe, and the parents unfortunately abandoned them and weren't feeding them. And the people that had them at their house brought them down to the wildlife refuge in Anderson, but they didn't make it. A white-faced ibis with a crawdad. Are those beautiful? Have you guys all seen the blue grosbeaks before? They're so beautiful.
Very rare here.
This was down at Sacramento Wildlife Refuge. A lot of times I don't know what things are if I've never seen them till I get home. I always take a picture and then get home and have to figure it out. I didn't know what this one was, but it was beautiful.
Is that a recent photo?
That was last year, I believe. It's a little baby starling. That's the other thing. I'm sure you guys are birders, so you know this, but part of the observations I do too is to watch this time of year, and if parents are going back and forth with twigs and building material, I try to watch to see where they're going and if they're building a nest, because with my camera from far away, I can get some nice close-ups. So I was watching the parents here bring stuff back and forth to this little crevice in the tree, and this little guy stuck his head out for me. These are two pintails that were just about two male pintails, and they were just about ready to get in a fight. So they were sizing each other up, which I thought was kind of interesting. And a merlin and a prairie falcon. I don't get to see these very often, so that's kind of fun. And this is just a raven that I captured a few months ago, but I just turned it to black and white because I thought it was somehow fitting for a raven to be black and white instead of color. And this guy hadn't wiped his mouth yet. Cooper Hawk, and this was at Clover Creek. And he flew right in front of me too to eat. So again, he was probably 15 feet away from me. I love the egrets. And this is just a couple snow geese. I don't know if very many of you have ever been down to the refuges when all the snow geese are there, but to watch an eagle fly over and all of these guys to take flight, the noise and the look is just amazing. If you haven't been down there, you should really try to get down there next year. There you can see all kinds of just incredible things.
Yeah, we usually make a trip down to Sacramento National Wildlife Refuge every year.
Do you go to Colusa too, Larry? It's one of my favorites. And if you're that far, it's only like 25 minutes away.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I go there, but we usually spend so much time at Sacramento that it ends up being a really long day if you go to Colusa also.
Yeah, it does. I'm a crazy one, so I usually get down there as soon as it's light and do a couple drives around Sac, and then I go to Colusa, and if it's good, I'll do 2 drives, and then I'll step back by Sac on the way. One time I went to Gray Lodge, Colusa, Sacramento Wildlife, and Vina Plains all in one day. Took me all day. So that's the end. Whoops. And thank you so much for having me. And do you have any questions?
Well, I just wanted to say that, you know, these are mostly local birds that we see every day, but it sure gives you even more appreciation for them to see these beautiful photos of them up close and to see them, you know, eating their prey and catching it. And yeah, just it kind of renews my interest in them again.
You know, it was interesting. It's always across the board with people, but I know I posted one of the beautiful starling pictures, and boy, there was a lot of hate comments on one of my bird sites, and it always surprises me. But I know a lot of people don't like them, but you know, what do you do? They're here, and somebody brought them over here, and it's not like you can get rid of them all. So, but there's a lot of hatred about starlings. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, I think that just comes from the fact that they take cavities because they're cavity nesting birds, and so some people have a problem with them because they take natural cavities that other native species then don't have.
Can't use.
Can't
No, I
use,
understand it, but I don't know what we do about it. I don't know if you can eradicate them all, you know?
No, so you know we have a big cavity nesting bird program with Shasta Birding Society. We have 70 some nest boxes, and I think I've only had a starling in one of them once.
Huh.
So it doesn't seem like a really big deal to me, but
Uh-huh. So what is the most unique bird that you guys have seen around here? Or unusual?
wow, well there've been, you know, well, I don't know how I don't know if I'd say most everybody, but pretty much all the people that go on our bird walks use eBird to keep track of all the birds that they see.
Uh-huh.
And when there are rare birds in the area, there's alerts for rare birds. And so a lot of people go to try and chase them and find out where they are and photograph them or at least see them.
You know what's interesting, and I don't want to have any controversy here, but I think it's kind of fascinating. A lot of people that I know in that enjoy the photography, we don't like to share a lot of locations, especially, you know, like with owls or something, because we don't want everybody to go there and take pictures. But then people can also go to eBird and find out where they are too. And it's not that we want to deprive people of pictures, but we don't want so many people there that will force the bird to leave. You know, like the owls, for
Right.
example, the burrowing owls, if, you know, 30 people go down there. And how do we balance all that out? Do you guys struggle with that at all with using eBird? I'm just curious. I'm not trying to cause trouble.
No, but I think that's definitely an issue that a number of people talk about in birding.
Uh-huh.
You know, how much harm are we doing by advertising where birds are, and hordes of people come to see them and disturb them in their habitat. I think
Mhm.
just the last issue of Audubon had a fairly lengthy article about that. How
And what did they,
social media has encouraged these, you know, large crowds of people to come and watch birds. But
what was it, that white snow owl that was down south that just people were invading their neighborhood like crazy?
mhm,
Did you guys see that at all?
I didn't.
No.
Wasn't it, Michelle, do you know, wasn't it a white snowy owl or something?
I think so.
And it
Those
ended
are
up like
pretty
in
rare.
Los Angeles someplace at somebody's house and kept on their roof and tree. And oh my goodness, it was awful, the number of people that were coming to that neighborhood. And that
Yeah,
wasn't a natural place for that owl, so it eventually moved on. But I know we talk about it a lot and struggle. That's why I just say, you know, in the back roads of Shasta County.
right.
You know, we found a whole bunch, probably 50 plus wood ducks on one of the back roads someplace. And I posted it, but I just put back roads of Shasta County because I didn't want everybody bugging them, you know. So it's always that fine balance. I'm sure that you guys struggle with too, huh?
Yeah, snowy owls are actually one of the most harassed, probably raptors of all time because photographers, you know, some photographers are just not they shouldn't be photographing birds because they harass them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, all you can do is, you know, if you see it happening, is, you know, say something. Or but I think for the overwhelming number of birders that and bird photographers, I think pretty much they don't harass the birds that they're trying to photograph.
Yeah, I think for the most part, you're right. As a matter of fact, they thought I was really silly when I got the opportunity to go to Alaska. I got to go out in a boat and I caught my first king salmon, which was exciting. And we threw the shrimp pots, and the shrimp up there are humongous and delicious. But the eagles were flying all over around where we were, and they wanted to throw some of the bait up so I could get a picture. And I said, no, I can't do that. And they said, why can't you do that? And I said, I just don't believe in baiting animals to get a picture. I said, now, if you caught something that you normally always would throw back, then that's okay with me. But to throw bait up there just so I can get a picture, I can't do that. And they just thought I was this crazy person, but it just bothered me. And I kind of believe that we shouldn't be baiting animals to get a picture. So,
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that there's an organization, I think it's NAPFA, right? North America Photography. I think it's NAPTHA. So it's a photography organization that has an entire protocol for photographing live animals and what you should and should not do. And if every bird photographer and animal photographer kept to their rules, there wouldn't be a problem.
I know this is I can't remember, fourth or fifth kind of presentation, and they're all a little different. Somebody asked me to do one on wildlife and photography, and wellness, and so it was tweaked. But I always bring the handouts about etiquette for birds and what to do and what not to do, and give everybody a handout when I'm there too, because I want them to think about that. I hate it when people have an animal with them and they intentionally let them chase the geese. Or where was I the other day? Oh, at Mary Lake. There's a father with 3 little very unruly children, and he was just letting them chase the geese all over. They don't think anything of it, so it's hard sometimes.
Mhm.
And normally I speak up and I just get told to mind my own, you know what, business. So you guys probably get that a lot too, huh?
A few times, yeah.
You what?
A few times, yes.
Yes. Anyways,
trying-
anybody have any other questions or anything you want to talk about? Or
Well, I just really appreciate, I'm a real advocate of slow birding. You know, taking your time to really watch and learn from the animals and their behavior, so I
yeah,
appreciate,
it's fun.
yeah, the way you do things.
Your photographs are incredible, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I work hard at it. And I'm serious. That's why I really enjoy learning about not just the birds, but all of
Oops, you
Uh-oh.
froze.
really study them a lot, take
Oh.
better pictures. You know, most of the time, again, like if an egret or heron, for example, are in the water and really intent on looking for fish down below them, they could kind of care less that you're there. You know, I don't want to bug them, so normally I'll sit down and watch and have my camera ready. But, you know, for the most part, that's not a flight thing for them. And so I think you can learn a lot of those little things about a wide variety of the wildlife that you're taking pictures.
Well, and one of the most important things, which you obviously do, but a lot of photographers don't, is to get down to the level of the bird where the bird's eyes are. You know, you see people taking photographs of birds on the beach or something, and they're standing up, you know, looking down on the bird. It makes a huge difference when you're, you know, eye to eye with the species that you're taking a
Yeah,
photograph
and you
of.
do get better pictures. I'm just thankful I can still get back up. I don't know how many more years I'll be able to do that. So I'm waiting for when I can't hold my camera up anymore. Maybe by then they'll have some new lighter cameras. I've been thinking about that lately. I'm still okay so far, but by then too, I might even switch and get a really nice video camera and start taking videos if I can't hold my camera steady anymore. So that time might be coming, but I hope I have a few more years left.
Well, enter some of those in the National Audubon Photography Contest, the annual contest.
Yeah.
Think so?
Yeah.
Oh,
they're
definitely.
gorgeous. Mhm.
I don't
Especially
know.
the
Does-
ones that show them eating and good pictures of their environment around them. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to watch for that. Might be fun.
Mhm.
And I hope to go on some of your outings. It's just always like I have something else already planned or something that I've already committed to when I see them. But I'm hoping to come to some more of the outings.
Great. Love to have you.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
got some, I don't know if sometime too when you get back in person, but I don't remember if it was, I think Trisha and Julie and I were talking. I had quite a few ideas on how maybe we can get more people involved, and wouldn't mind sitting down sometime and talking about those again.
Mhm. Sure. Let's do that.
I think that'd be fun. I
Oh,
wish we could get
email
more
you.
of the young people involved,
Mhm.
Yeah.
whatever that's going to look.
Get them off their phones.
Well, that's probably
Already
not
use
going to
their phones
happen.
for photography.
Yeah. But there may be some, you know, some other things. I'll have to put my thinking cap on. I was even thinking if it might be fun to get the kids excited about trying to see if we can get into some of the classes or something and do a little talking. One of the things that, again, a lot of the facts that I shared about how many they can eat 1,100 berries or whatever, I think people that aren't necessarily into birds and nature, the more interesting facts like that you can share with them, I think the more interested they get, like, oh, I didn't know that. That's really cool. And then when they see that bird, they're going to remember it. And I think those have been proven to be a beneficial tool, just trying to share some strange, unique tidbit about different animals to get people more excited and appreciate Mother Nature.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely learned some new things from you. Thank you.
Well, and I had to research them, so, but I tried to find just some fun stuff, but, even maybe sharing that with some kids, or maybe in coordination with Turtle Bay, having some kind of where we collectively can gather, photos. I know we have a lot of people in our photo club that have a lot of bird photos too that are really, really good. And if we can all start looking up some fun, interesting facts and maybe partner with Turtle Bay to do some kind of a presentation to get people more involved with birding and all the activities, I think there's a lot of stuff that we could look at doing.
Yeah, maybe even a local bird photo exhibit at Turtle Bay, with the local birds, what they can find, some interesting tidbits around them for the kids might be fun.
Well, and even, I don't know if they'd ever consider some kind of exhibit, because there's certainly enough of us that have good photos, and then, have like a paragraph or a couple of sentences with fun, unique things about that particular bird that I think a lot of people would enjoy and go read about. And especially the more, like I said, fun, unique, interesting things, I think that it's cements that in our mind, like, oh, that is so cool. Because a lot of people, I feel like, don't really stop to consider really how amazing not just birds, but all of Mother Nature is, and how it all, fits together, and all the adaptations. If you think of just the osprey and all the adaptations they have for fishing, from their feet, and it's like goalie gloves, and their eyelids that close, and 3 or 4, and their nostrils close from the force of hitting the water, and it just kind of the way their toes are, and then 2 front, forward, backward for grabbing the fish, and almost all the birds have different adaptations that they have learned. Like a lot of the larks in the prairies have that one long toenail that they can scratch, and almost every one of them have some unique adaptations that they utilize. And I think that's really fascinating. Like, how can the hummingbird survive the cold weather? A lot of people don't stop to think about some of those, when it's freezing outside, and they can shut their breathing down. And I just think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
And that's why I wore my bird nerd t-shirt.
Good deal.
So anyway, if you guys wanted to get together just at a coffee shop or down at Anderson Park and sit and brainstorm ideas, that'd be fun.
We'll do that.
Sounds good.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate